I feel like the one thing is like it's easy to get overwhelmed because you want to get from like here to over there, but first you have to go here, 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 here. And so one thing that I always keep reminding myself is like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to make it so complex that you get overwhelmed, you get stressed out, and then you just don't do anything. I think that you just have to focus on putting in the work, and like it's a lot of work, hard work, but it's easy work. Like it's not to get a person to buy a product, you have to see if they like it. Well, how do you go see if they like it? You go talk to them or you send them an email or you do a survey. Like it's just these easy steps, and like you can kind of work through the issues by just talking it through or talking to someone who's already done it so that you're not as overwhelmed and that you don't feel like this isn't for you, because I feel like if you put in the work, you could be an entrepreneur as well.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode here of the Problems or Profits podcast. My name is Rebecca Lynn Maxton, aka the Canadian Cottage Girl, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Matt McKeever, as well as our special guest, Nicole, who is the founder of a fantastic company here local to London, Ontario. She has been an aspiring entrepreneur, really wanting to empower women in business and fitness. And as an athlete herself, she competed as a varsity rower and studied at Western University in kinesiology, as well as acquiring her master's from the Ivy Business School. So really excited for you guys to hear all about her business and more, and absolutely go all in and crush your goals, as they say. So really excited to have you here, Nicole. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca and Matt. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes here, Matt, if you want to go through kind of what problems or profits really means and really our mantra here on the podcast.
Absolutely. So problems and profits is really, it's a life philosophy. It's just a way of being, in my opinion. And, 2021, 2020, we've seen a lot of potential problems or obstacles thrown at people and entrepreneurs. And at the end of the day, it's up to us to decide how we're going to interact with those problems or obstacles, right? Are you going to decide that this is an insurmountable challenge and just kind of give up on your journey? Or are you going to choose to make the best of the hand you were dealt with and try and find the opportunity within that problem or obstacle? So really appreciate you joining us, Nicole. And before we jump into kind of your backstory, we always like to start every podcast with just 3 warm-up questions. So the first warm-up question here is, what's the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
Oh, probably my phone screen at some point. I'm really careful around expensive things. I don't usually own a lot of them or touch them. Actually, you know what? One second, I changed my answer. My car, but technically I didn't break it. It broke on its own, but it is worth more than my phone. So that's what I'm going to stick to.
Sounds good. Yeah, car seems to be a common answer to this question. Yeah. A lot of people have broken cars. So what kind of car did you break, or did it break down on you?
It just broke down on me. It was it's an 09 Nissan Sentra. I actually don't think it's drivable anymore, so I currently don't drive it around. It's just sitting in the driveway.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we all have our fair share of car stories, but definitely appreciate that. Next question is, if you had $1 million and only 24 hours to spend it before it completely disappears, what would you do with it?
Honestly, I would book so many plane tickets to travel everywhere, just online plane tickets. I'd be set for the whole year. And I'd bring all my favorite people with me. And I would pay for their jobs so they wouldn't have to go to work. So just so they have no excuse not to join me.
Nice. That's awesome. And then our final third question here is, why are you you?
That is, I don't know if that's random. I feel like I'm being targeted, but there's a lot of things I think that makes me me, but I think I love sports, and fitness is a big part of my life. And I think it brings out the best in me. And so without fitness, I wouldn't be as productive or as successful as I am now. And I'm very time oriented and time efficient. So I really don't like being late to things. And I don't like when processes are a little bit slower than they could be. And I like optimizing everything, which also one of the reasons why I started Hairstrong. And I like to be positive because looking on the bright side always makes things easier to go through than being negative and complaining about everything. So I'd say those three things are about me.
I love that. Well, Nicole, I really would love to break down a little bit about your story and just kind of background in building this business, Hairstrong, and your product, the Hairstrong scrunchie, because I know that this has been something that you've been working on since your launch in July 2019, but I'm sure even before that, in some of your classes, I've heard a little bit about your backstory, but I would love if you just would go through that for us and for our audience, just to give a little bit of context here.
Yeah, so you can't really tell right now because I have my hair up, but I have really long and thick hair. And growing up playing sports and participating in fitness, it would always get in the way. And while growing up, I always thought my hair was the problem. Like it was too thick, so I would try and get it layered every time I got a cut, or I would cut it short. And I'm like, okay, this will solve the problem. And it never really looked like the magazines or Google Images or Pinterest, like anything that I looked for. It just didn't work. And so this whole time I thought I was the problem. But then when I was in my 4th year of undergrad, I started a course called Entrepreneurship and Kinesiology, because that's what my undergrad was in. And my prof asked us one day about problems we face every day. And because I was training 20 to 30 hours a week for rowing, I said my hair. And because every day I would go train and my hair would just be in my face. So that was just top of mind. And when we put all of our problems on the board, there were other people in the class who kind of resonated with this issue as well. And that's when I realized, okay, it's not me, it's the products. And so then for this class, I designed a prototype with my then boyfriend, and we wanted to make something adjustable that could fix my problem. And it was just for this one class. So we built the prototype and we pitched the business idea at the end of the course as like a Dragon's Den style pitch for marks. And coincidentally, on the day that I was pitching, there's business advisors from Propel, which is now the Morissette Entrepreneurship Center, partnered with Ivy and Western now. And they told me that I could really run this into a business because of how scalable it is. And at the time I was like, no way, because I'm not a business owner. I'm not a business person. Like I would not work for this. And then they made me realize that it would work well because I work hard, and they would help me along the way, and they would teach me all that I needed to know. So that was they saw me in November 2018. And then from then until July 2019, until I began selling, I was working nonstop on how to get customers, how to make more of these, how to market it, how to do everything. I started doing pitch competitions. I entered in an incubator program at Western. And then finally in July, I finally started selling, which was a huge validation point for me because I never knew that I could get from just like my small prototype to actually selling to people in 7 months. So that was really cool. And that's really the start of my story.
That's awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that. And curious, how did the product evolve? Was it the first prototype was the one and you guys just ran with it, or has it evolved over time?
So the first prototype I had was technically the one that I showed, like made public. It looks cleaner now and it looks better in terms of stitching because I sewed it, and I don't know. I'm very ugly at sewing. Like I don't know how to do it properly. So it's just ugly. And at first I didn't want it to be a scrunchie or look like a scrunchie because I hated them. I thought that they weren't durable enough. I thought that their whole like background was like, okay, this is just for looks. This is just for aesthetic. And I need something that actually works. But then in class one day when I was showing people like my idea and what I could do with it for this project, they said, why don't you add fabric around it so that your hair doesn't get stuck in the lock and so that it looks better. So yeah, without the fabric, it's really ugly. And so when I added the fabric around it, it made it look better, but also it added all these other benefits that I realized later on, like it doesn't crease your hair because of the pressure. It doesn't give you headaches because of it like disperses the elastic pressure as well. And it just is soft on your hair, so it doesn't damage it as much. So from like an elastic with some type of cord and mechanism to a scrunchie to now it's just like a very clean version. And at first we were just going to have one size, and I was just going to focus on people with really thick hair. But then I realized that I can focus on everybody. So I made 3 different sizes to accommodate for the different hair types, textures, and styles.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the kind of like thought process there and the evolution of the product. It's very interesting to just hear the background. And one of the things that was kind of a tagline just on your website and in your platform is just changing the hair accessory industry and moving without restriction. So moving without restriction, I can definitely appreciate. I've certainly had many of these like standard hair ties break, and especially playing different sports, it is so hard to actually keep your hair up. My background is in rugby, so making a tackle and then coming up with hair in your face is not exactly advantageous to seeing the next play happen. So when you can move without restriction, I think that that's a huge problem solver. And also, I'd love to dive deeper into that changing the hair accessory industry, because this is something that you identified as a problem. And like any good entrepreneur story, you're a problem solver in this, and you've actually solved your own problem and thus are helping others solve their problems as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you intend to change the hair accessory industry with this product.
So everything you see now in the industry is one size fits all. They have an elastic, and they focus on taking advantage of the elasticity of it and the stretchability, so you could loop it as many times as you want until it eventually breaks. And the problem with this is that elastics can only stretch so far, and then they can only tighten so much after they're being overstretched constantly. And because you're overstretching them, trying to put in your hair, they're vulnerable to breaking. And so they're not very reliable. The way I did it was I wanted to focus on how to customize something for your hair so that it could fit each individual at a different, in a different way without making it super unattainable. So the adjustable feature on Hairstrong, any of the sizes, allows you to control the fit so that it does fit you perfectly every single time. And with that fit, it actually works. You can reliably know that your hair will stay up out of the way, which you don't get that peace of mind with all one size fits all products.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. And so, you set out to kind of solve this one problem. Are there other problems now that you're focused on solving, or is it just creating more awareness and pushing the business? What's next for Hairstrong?
Well, there's other products that we could definitely launch, like in terms of headbands and something that doesn't look like a scrunchie. But next, I was really focused on making a hair accessory that disabled body persons could use. For example, if you have only one arm, how would you be able to, usually when I put my elastic in my hair, I need 2 arms, one to hold my hair, one to loop the elastic. But people who have one arm or one hand, they do it very differently. And so I'm thinking of making something that they could also use and have their hair reliably kept up, because there's so many sports that they participate in. And so it's just, they don't have the best products for them to use to be able to move without restrictions.
Definitely appreciate that. Now, my understanding is that you are a solopreneur doing all of this basically on your own, bootstrapping this. So given that there is so much potential here with products and future development, how are you managing the growth of the business as well as creative innovation and really scaling this business ultimately?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things to unpack there, but mainly I'll talk about how I'm trying to do it and how it's going so far and what I'm currently doing. So I'm always thinking about what's the most efficient, what is the best use of my time to maximize my reach, to maximize my revenue, to maximize my sales. So right now, I'm trying to automate as much as I can and hand off the tasks that I don't necessarily need to do, that I've nailed down the process for, the systems for, and can hand it off to someone else. For example, just one thing in particular, like email marketing. I don't need to send out my emails to each individual every single day. I set up different systems, different flows that automatically sends that person when they reach certain criteria. another aspect is fulfillment. Like currently I fulfill all my orders. As soon as the order comes in online, I package it, I take it to the post office, and it gets fulfilled. Right now, I'm growing to the point where I can hand that off to another company and have them fulfill it for me. So I can save that time that I would spending delivering items to grow the business on ads or the innovation side, as you said. Sooner or later, I will have to have someone else on. And I do have people helping me. Like I do have a seamstress, and I do have an agency I work with to help me with SEO and Google ads and stuff like that. But it's still me for a second here. So I'm just trying to make it as efficient as possible. And that's currently what I'm doing, is putting these systems in place so that I can use my time most efficiently. Know everything. Like I can't do everything, and I know that I can't do everything, but doing everything well enough to have it still grow is the goal.
Gotcha. And so before that kinesiology entrepreneurship class, I'm going to guess you were on a slightly different trajectory. And then once this project came up, you were able to really lean into this opportunity. I know you mentioned that through the school and the program, there were certain mentors or facilitators that kind of helped you. You know, what were some of the standout resources or pieces of advice that you got that, you know, made you decide, no, I'm going to follow through on this. I'm going to really see this through and bring it to reality?
Well, I think the first thing that did it was that I really didn't know what I was going to do after my undergrad. Like, sure, I could have gone to the master's and like master's in kin, like that's what most of my friends were doing at the time, but I didn't really see where I can go after that and how it could benefit my career trajectory. And the thing that really drew me to this business was that the work you put in is the exact output you get out. Like, you can't lie to yourself. Like everything, all the resources and time you put into it is what you get out. And so I really like that validation of putting in work and getting it out. And another thing that really drawn me to it is that you have to constantly do new things. And I love change because I get bored easily. So having new tasks to do every day and having new challenges to overcome is really easy. In terms of like resources and mentorship that were pivotal moments, like that incubator that I got into summer of 2019 really helped shape my understanding and business landscape, like knowledge of how I could potentially grow this business. And even if it doesn't work out, what I could do later on, and or how I could still have it part of my life and still reach my goal of revolutionizing the hair accessory industry. With people, like everyone at that incubator program helped me out, and people at Ivy are so helpful as well, and alumni and entrepreneurs in my space in general. Like I love looking up to people who are positive and just like keep going no matter what the issues are, and that's what keeps me going on this path.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. And then, so just curious, you know, obviously you guys wrote out a giant list of problems that people had identified. Were there any problems that, you know, maybe you saw that you were like, hey, there's also an opportunity here. I'm going to focus on this one though. You know, we love highlighting other problems or opportunities for people that are thinking about or aspiring to become an entrepreneur.
Well, that class was like 2.5, 3 years ago now. So I don't exactly remember all the problems that were faced, put on the board, but there's so many. I just can't put my finger on it right now.
Any advice for people that are maybe they've got that entrepreneurial experience or spirit, but they don't know where to channel it, what to focus it on?
Well, I would say talk to other entrepreneurs and maybe help another entrepreneurial business, because even though like you don't have an idea right now, you might get one or might think of one while working with someone else, and you get all that experience that they have starting their own business. Like, yeah, it's not your own idea yet, but getting all that knowledge so that when you do have one and you do get one, then you know what to do once that time comes.
Definitely appreciate that. Now, one thing that you highlighted from a mentorship standpoint is that in this incubator, in this environment that you had on campus with all of these other entrepreneurs, mentors, professors, that you had a really good opportunity to flourish and grow. Now, how do you replicate that outside of that environment, as now that you've graduated and now that you're in the real world? Like, how do you find mentorship and accelerate the level that you're at?
Yeah, so during my time in undergrad, I networked a lot, and I'll also network a lot now. So I'll ask my friends will promote or introduced me to other people, and which is how I make most of my connections now. I'm currently in another accelerator program that's 4 months, hosted by Ivy. And so I'm in that now. So I have that same like ecosystem, or not same, different, but more mature ecosystem of how to grow my business. So I'm taking advantage of that. Another aspect that I would say is like taking advantage of what London has to offer, because London has a small business center. Like if you go in, they'll give you direction, they'll give you resources, they'll give you help for where you need it. And there's also a lot of entrepreneurial events. Like I know before COVID, they were in person, but I'm sure there's some over Zoom now. But the best part was that I was able to connect with entrepreneurial friends, and following them through their journey, I was able to connect with other people. And then it just like spider webbed into a whole network of people that I connected with.
Got it. And follow up to that would be, what type of mentorship are you currently seeking out? Like what elements of your business are you really trying to focus on? And thus, who are you reaching out to really make that happen?
Yeah, so right now I'm really trying to focus on the wholesale route and getting into stores to potentially get into Sport Check or Sporting Life and just like big box sporting goods stores, because I think that would be amazing. So I'm currently like reaching out for help for how to most efficiently do that as one person team. And currently, how do I optimize my production and operations to ensure that I have the capacity to fulfill big orders like that. So I'm definitely testing stuff out now and like asking for help. Another avenue is like I'm still on e-commerce. I'm still on the online trying to sell direct to consumer. So looking for ways on how to optimize reach on social media and utilizing my email marketing strategy to the best of my abilities to ensure that I can reach new people and ensure returning ones keep purchasing.
Absolutely. Now that's a whole nother ball game, getting into some of those big box stores. So what are some of the challenges that you've faced in seeking that out?
So right now I haven't approached them yet because I'm building up to that. So I'm currently looking into other retailers that I could potentially go in to see how it works, to see how partnerships look like, how different retailers operate, so that I can get a grasp on what would be expected of me at a higher level, and to increase the amount of sales I have now, to also not constrain cash flow as much, because when you get into this big box brands, they have a lot of power and leverage over you. So you have to make sure that you have enough cash to last you for when you have to fulfill the order versus when you get paid versus the delivery time versus everything. So just ensuring that I have the right systems in place to be able to expand that big, whether it comes from like whether I finance it through sales or getting a loan or whatever, I would just have to figure that out to ensure that I can fulfill those big orders.
And so right now, is Hairstrong your full-time like day job as well, or are you juggling it with something else?
So up until June, I was juggling it with school, and I finished classes in June, which was a relief because I was supposed to go to Australia, and instead I had to do it over Zoom. So the time change wasn't the best, but now I'm doing this full-time job. Like I'm in this accelerator program now, and I'm able to focus on this full-time for the next 3.5 months without needing an additional stream of income. But then come January, I want to get it to the point where I can start taking income from Hairstrong and take this on full time instead of looking for another job as well.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, have you kind of reverse engineered those goals as far as like what sort of sales volume you need to hit? Or at what point in time will you know like, hey, yeah, this feels safe to me? Because I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, it can be really easy to second guess yourself or, work your way up to the edge of the cliff, but then not be willing to make the jump into full time.
So I definitely reverse engineered it. So there's a number status quota that I need to hit in order to start taking out money for myself, because at that point I'd feel comfortable enough paying myself, but also investing enough back into the business to help it grow. It's definitely not like a feel thing, because the number in your bank account isn't necessarily reflective on like everything that's coming in month to month. So just knowing like, let's say by January, I have a consistent like flow of orders that have hit the quota, I will then start taking out little bit by little bit, see how it works, and then start taking out more to ensure that I don't need to have another income stream.
Got it. Now, for that reverse engineering of the goal, did you also look at the future pace or future growth of the company? So, like the big pillars, you mentioned getting into kind of potentially down the road some big box stores. So, what are the potential positions you may have to hire? Like, did you look at any of those things, and what are some of those future challenges that you might be seeking out or running into?
Yeah, so there's probably going to be a lot. Again, like I'm anticipating them, but at the end of the day, like I don't know until I get there what I'll need. However, like what I'm anticipating now is that I'll need like a sales rep to help me manage the relationships I have with all of these retailers on a week to week or day to day basis. I'll know I'll need to branch out and ensure that I'm getting consistent advertising out there, consistent marketing. And so I'll need a person to juggle and take charge of that. And I know that I'll also need help with just like running the operations of it, whether it's I take that fully out to fulfillment center or have someone help me fulfill the orders. It's just that's another just process with operations, just because it's time consuming to do like packing orders and then shipping them out as well. So these are just like a few examples that I know that I wouldn't be able to do by myself as soon as I start increasing the order volume.
Yeah, I appreciate you breaking that down, because I know it can be really intimidating for a lot of newer entrepreneurs as they're thinking about, how to scale, how to go full time and everything like that. So taking it in a slightly different direction, is there a problem or an opportunity right now that you're too busy? You're focused on Hairstrong and you're like, hey, there's maybe something over here, but like I can't distract myself.
Right now, like in terms of like Hairstrong in general, like it's the product line. Like I would love to expand the product line, but that takes time away from getting new customers. And so I'm choosing to first strengthen the brand and then introduce new products, which is a bit difficult because like I want to launch these new products. I want to put time and resources into that. But at the same time, like there's still so many gaps into the business just because I am doing it by myself. So just like being by myself is a problem, but we're balancing it as best as we can.
Absolutely. Now, have you thought of having any sort of investor come in or partnering with somebody who could accelerate the business a little bit faster?
I actually am looking to get an angel investor or an investor just in general to come in the business and purchase equity, and not just for money purposes, but for actual mentorship on how to scale and the directions to take with the business to grow wholesale and to grow e-commerce on the same time. I know that you guys just asked me like what problems will you see when you scale and what do you need to hire out? Like this is all my anticipation, but I know that it would be a bit more, I'd be a bit more confident having someone else tell me, okay, this will work because of this won't work because of this. And they've had that experience backing it to know what will work and what's not worth trying and what is. And for me, like if I go there alone, it's just me trying stuff out, potentially losing money, trying to figure it out by myself, which I don't mind, but it's like I don't have that much money to be able to make that big of a mistake if I do the wrong choice. Like I don't like entrepreneurs, they don't like risk. They try to mitigate it as much as possible, make it as small as possible, but it's still an option if you fail, like that you lose money and resources and time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And I think that one of the big key factors when it comes to taking on an investor that a lot of newer entrepreneurs overlook, and tip of the hat to you for not doing so, is not only what sort of money does the person bring to the table, but what sort of experience, insight, industry connections. So when thinking about who is the right investor for your business, does that look like mapping out a giant list of like dream characteristics? Is it, oh no, I know this is the most important thing in my business right now, so that's going to be a key factor for the potential investor?
I have two criteria that I'm looking for. One is connections within the industry. So knowing the right people to help this business grow. And the second is how well we get along and how well our personalities go together. I need certain things from certain people and they probably need certain things from me. And whether we or not we meet those expectations together will determine the success, I think. I just need, like, if someone's buying in, it would need to be not like a 50-50 partnership, but trust in each other that we'll both get our parts done and help grow to then get like the ROI on investment, like on investment on Hairstrong.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. I think that from the perspective of a new entrepreneur, to hear that backstory as well as understand, like you're probably going to get to a point in your business where you become the bottleneck, right? You become the thing that prevents it from accelerating. That's just because we all have the same 24 hours in our day. So there's only so much time that Nicole can actually dedicate to the business and actually spend time like learning about all of these opportunities to grow. So when you can put yourself in a position to, as they say, stand on the shoulder of giants who have already done it before and really learn from everything that they've done and use that as an opportunity to accelerate your business, I think that there's a lot that can be said and value from doing something like that with an investor coming into your business. Not only the monetary gain for being able to innovate and actually have like the product to fulfill orders with new big opportunities, but to actually have the knowledge base to make those decisions in real time and really shake things up in the business. So I can definitely appreciate that. Now, for you, how are you actually going about seeking these opportunities and connecting with potential investors? Because that seems like a daunting task in itself of like, you know, how do you find these people who are going to invest in your company? So are you approaching this in a certain way, or what kind of strategies are you using?
So I have a few people in mind in terms of like who's already in my network and who I could potentially reach out to once I'm ready. But another thing is that through the accelerator program that I'm doing right now, at the end of the term, we get a chance to pitch in front of investors. So I'm hoping to make it through to that pitch and then pitch in front of a network of Ivy and Western alumni who would be interested in investing into my business.
Awesome. Well, best of luck on that. And before we let you go, Nicole, any, parting pieces of advice or wisdom for aspiring entrepreneurs that maybe they've got an idea, but they're hesitating?
I feel like the one thing is like it's easy to get overwhelmed because you want to get from like here to over there, but first you have to go here, 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 here. And so one thing that I always keep reminding myself is like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to make it so complex that you get overwhelmed, you get stressed out, and then you just don't do anything. I think that you just have to focus on putting in the work, and like it's a lot of work, hard work, but it's easy work. Like it's not to get a person to buy a product, you have to see if they like it. Well, how do you go see if they like it? You go talk to them, or you send them an email, or you do a survey. Like it's just these easy steps, and like you can kind of work through the issues by just talking it through or talking to someone who's already done it, so that you're not as overwhelmed and that you don't feel like this isn't for you, because I feel like if you put in the work, you could be an entrepreneur as well.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on here, Nicole. Now, how can people actually find your product, and what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they are super inspired by this chat and they just want to order a bunch of product, or maybe they just want to hear a little bit more and connect with you? What's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is www.hairstrong.ca, and there you can find each product that I have, as well as like links to other blogs and podcasts that I've written or been on. And in terms of like reaching out directly to me, you could go through my Instagram, which is @HairstrongBand. I'm usually the one answering the DMs because, well, I'm the only person with that account. And or you could email me at info@hairstrong.ca, which is like my direct email line, which I could also be contacted through that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.